We had come to New York, and we ended up playing against Lamar Odom's team, high school team at the time. We were getting ready for a competition, but they kicked our butts. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we're a national team, and this is a city team, and we can beat them. And that's when I saw the different way the game was approached. These intensity, the aggression, like, wow, this is not what we know. So that was my first wake-up call. Let's see if I'm as good as I think I am.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on the lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure. Working on the plot and the scheme. The true style trademark is at the edge of your dreams.
Most people look at a first-round NBA draft pick and assume that the dream came true. They see the height, they see the talent, the draft night moment, the jerseys, the arena, the money, and all the validation. But what we don't always talk about is what happens when that dream doesn't feel the way that you thought it would. What happens when the outside world says you made it, but internally something feels off. Today's guest lived that tension. Jerome Moizo, born in France and raised on the French island of Guadeloupe, came to the U.S., played at UCLA, was selected 11th overall by the Boston Celtics in the 2000 NBA draft. From the outside, that's the dream. But the story isn't just about making it to the league. It's about what happens when the thing that you chased your whole life doesn't give you the peace, the identity, or the fulfillment that you thought it would. Jerome, welcome to Life Game. But before we get into it, I wanted to start from the beginning, because obviously your path wasn't traditional. You weren't a kid from the States following the AAU to college pipeline.
Yes, I was born in France, in Paris. My mother is from Guadeloupe in the islands. I ended up going back home with me as an infant. So grew up there with my mother's side of the family. Basketball didn't enter the picture until later, maybe around 8, 9 years old. Man, mom is trying to find things to do. It's not the same setup as you have here. You play sports with the schools and stuff like that. It's more club culture. Therefore, she took me to a few different things. Tried ping pong, football, and then we landed on basketball, which I played for 2 years. Then I wasn't interested. We French, football is life. Football is what you want to play. That's what I was going to do. And we ended up living in France for a couple years from age 10 to 12. And I was playing football and was getting recruited by some local clubs in the south of France.
Nice.
But, the one fateful Sunday afternoon, which is when we used to have the weekly reports on sports, I just happened to turn the TV on and I see this guy, bald dude, hooping, but he's playing against a local club in Paris. But I don't watch basketball, so I'm like, what is this? What is this guy doing? I've never seen this before. Next thing you know, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. So, that's when football came out the door. It's like, I'm done with that. I'm going to do what this guy was doing, floating in the air, reverse layups, like it's nothing. Actually, the guy that I saw on TV that changed my mind was Jordan. I didn't know that until years later.
Right.
So I started going to the playgrounds and start playing against a grown man on the playground, but I'm just trying to replicate what I saw. We moved back to Guadeloupe, and very interestingly, my PE teacher was an American. Don't ask me how he ended up in Guadeloupe teaching PE. But he's the first one that kind of told me, like, hey, do you play? You like playing ball? Then he's the one that contacted the club on the island, and that's when it started. So by that time I'm 12, 13, I still don't know what the NBA is, what the NCAA is. The only two things I know is 2 names, or 3 names. The Lakers, Magic Johnson, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Ask me who they are, ask me what they've done on the court. I have no idea. But I went to Paris for 3 years at INSEP, which is the National Institute of Sports in France.
Okay.
Where they recruit top-notch athletes, that they think will become, pros. And from there, UCLA.
Okay, and I wanna just sit there for a moment at that transition from Paris to coming to UCLA, coming to the States, entering the basketball world here.
Yeah.
Did you feel pressure to feel like you belonged? What was the different parts of the basketball culture here versus what you were used to?
So I'd been in the U.S. a couple of times, but I was still not sure where my path was going to lead. I had done a camp in 1994, maybe in Miami, the University of Barry in Miami. Played for the junior national team, so 16, 17-year-old. We had come to New York, and we ended up playing against Lamar Odom's team, high school team at the time. We were getting ready for a competition, but they kicked our butts. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we're a national team, and this is a city team, and we can beat them. And that's when I saw the different way the game was approached. These intensity, the aggression, like, wow, this is not what we know. So that was my first wake-up call. There's an intensity, there's a physicality to it. Maybe it's cultural, it's, being from different shores. We don't have the same aggression. And it was my first realization that, my little skinny self, I was 230 if I was lucky. And guys out there, been lifting, been playing football on the side. And I'm like, oh boy. Good thing my skills, and I was faster most of the time, and good jumping ability. So I got by because I had the skills and the physical attributes. But the pressure was on me. It was not. I didn't feel like I didn't belong. But it was, wow, okay, all right. Let's see if I'm as good as I think I am. And that's what the pressure was, not external at that time.
No, that's good because I want to know from being at UCLA, you're like, okay, I'm here, I made it. You're competing and you're doing well at the time in the Pac-10, and then you then become the 11th pick in the NBA draft, right?
Yeah.
So like, what are some things that you remember just about that transition from UCLA leading up to whether it's the pre-draft camps and then ultimately a draft night?
So at that time, I'm thinking to myself, I think I had a pretty good outing here this year, and I'm not so sure that staying at UCLA is gonna make a difference now.
Yeah.
I'm not your 18-year-old freshman. I'm a 20-year-old freshman that came from overseas. People are going back to drafting high school. Do I want to wait until I'm 24 and then if I'm considered older? So I decided to leave. The pre-draft camp, it was interesting, to be around all these cats, in Chicago, doing all the measurement, the medical stuff. But the biggest thing on draft night, my first thought when hearing my name was, here you go. That it was not your typical, like, you see draft nights, whatever sport it is. It's like that moment of like, I made it, man. I've been watching this game for my whole life. I've been admiring this thing. My thought is, all right, let's see how long you're gonna last in there.
That's actually interesting because a lot of athletes can relate to chasing something for years and then get in there and realize, hey, this doesn't feel the way that, I might have thought it might have. Or, sometimes it's hard to admit to people around you because everyone's looking at you like, oh, you should be grateful or you should be happy. Or like you just said, you should be jumping with joy. Was it that draft night when you first realized that something might have felt off internally? Even though like externally everyone looked at you or might have been looking at you like you've achieved something or you made your dream.
So that internal battle was already there, but I didn't know where to put a finger on it. I didn't know what it meant. It was just like there was doubt. There was crippling doubt where some nights you're the best thing since sliced bread, and the next night, coach, I don't feel it. I don't know what's going on. And it's kind of like a weird thing to say because most people will look at you like, oh, you don't want it. And like you said, you go to the NBA now and you have to produce. You're now a paid employee. But I was very, very naive. At the time, I thought, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I'm good enough. I was drafted. I could have gone higher, but I already was struggling with some of these internal battles that I had no idea what they meant, where they came from, what the root cause was. So going into preseason, first thing was waking up in the morning and inability to feel like I can eat breakfast. I would go to practice and, stomach empty. Something is up, but I'll figure it out. I'm in the NBA. I have the skills. I have the athletic abilities. It's going to happen. It's going to work out. I just show up, come and practice. It's going to work out. But, it just doesn't work like that, as you know. The little monster that you keep pretending doesn't exist, it just keeps getting bigger until you can no longer ignore it. And then you show up and everyone was wondering like, what's wrong with you? And for me, it's kind of like, I always had a little bit chip on my shoulder, like, okay, somebody wants something from me. Who do I trust? If they're coming at me, they want something. What do they want?
I get that. And a question about that season, like at that time in your life, I imagine at this time you're 22 years old.
Yeah.
Were you able to talk about it with anyone, or did you just hold all that in privately?
Hold that in. The only person that, that would speak about that to would be my agent at the time, and we talked about different people that I could meet during the summer, during the off season, which we did. But, I ended up getting traded to Philadelphia at the time, from Boston, and barely lasted their training camp. And then they made a big deal with Charlotte to get Derek Coleman at the time. So I ended up being in a package deal with George Lynch, tractor trailer. We ended up in Charlotte. So you can already tell the mindset, wow, first year I'm already traded. And then traded second time before the second year even started. And I'm still in my mind, like, I'm going to do all I got to do. Therapy, hypnotherapy, scream therapy. I'm going to go plunge in cold water. Whatever you tell me, I'm going to go try and do it to freaking shock my system into action. And because the hardest part of that is no shade on anyone's game or anything. It's like you watch people that you played against, your peers in college or even before that, becoming established. But I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? Just last year, I was on these guys playing or better than this guy. But now everybody is evolving and I'm just sitting there stuck. And that's what started my journey on these, the mental aspect of what you were talking about, just I've got to figure out why I feel basically like the title of my book, Playing Small in the Big Man's World. You can't show up and think small of yourself and, have certain crippling doubts when you're out there trying to produce and against the biggest and the best competition in the world.
That leads me to the next question of, like, as a first round pick, obviously a lottery pick at that, right? Like, there's an expectation that you place on yourself, but everyone else places on you as well. Did that pressure affect the way that you ended up seeing yourself as a basketball player or as a person during that season?
Well, it's not the way you think of it. When you're already on high alert, everything is high risk because of your internal dialogue. Everything that you tell yourself, and then, then you get out there and then, everything seems to confirm your fear and your suspicions. Maybe I'm not that good. Maybe they made a mistake drafting me this high because everything I'm trying is not working. I'm not able to pierce through that ceiling and get to the next floor. And then, when you are on a high alert behavior, you start seeing everyone looking around and you're like, oh, they're talking about me. They're not happy about me. Let me give you the biggest example of that. First year in Boston, I come into practice one day and guess who is there waiting to meet me? Bill Russell is in the locker room, in the weight room. And it's like, yeah, they asked me to come and, say hi and talk to you. And I'm like, you grew up here, you know who Bill Russell is. You played, his significance to the sport and to the world, the community at large. To me, showing up to that day and walking into that gym and Bill Russell is there wanting to talk to me, my mind went straight, wow, I must be effing up real bad. It wasn't like, oh man, they got the big guy to talk to me because they believe in me. They want him to be able to unlock something in me. My mind went to, oh man, I must be doing real effing bad that they call the big dog trying to shake something out of me, like get this kid to play. Maybe him meeting you is going to be the thing that's going to unlock him.
They're going to shock you back into,
Shock you back into, the possibly could be an all-star type of player.
That made you feel a little bit smaller, huh? Right.
Of course.
Okay.
He went the complete opposite way of what you would think.
And that transitions to the, why we connected a bit is because this is where the conversation is important for athletes, right? Is because just because you make it or what we see, what we look at and say, hey, you made it, it doesn't automatically heal those inner thoughts. It doesn't heal insecurities. It doesn't automatically create peace, right? Sometimes the higher you climb, it adds another layer of doubt or more questioning. to you. So
If it magnifies and place your attention on it a little more to the point where you will start openly questioning. Like maybe it was operating in the background, but now the magnifying lens, you cannot escape it because there's nowhere to turn. And again, in my position, I came from a different place, different culture. I didn't grow up with the guys playing against them in AAU or whatever. So I don't feel like I have a support system that I can turn to and be like, you got to help me figure this out.
that leads to a specific individual that made an impact. Her work made an impact on you. A lot of athletes don't really know what it's like to get real help, or like a lot of times we get motivation or we get training, but to actually learn and figure out and get help with some of these deeper patterns, you were able to do so. Yeah, I want you to just unpack that and talk about how you first connected and then how long it took from when you initially connected to actually figuring out those patterns that we discuss.
Well, her name is Dr. Terry Mahaney. She's a woman of many careers, as you know, and but very creative and has developed a technology and a tool that help an individual while they're asleep. Their brain is recording these suggestions and it's rewiring your brain in the way you think. So my weightlifting coach at the time, during the off season, knew her, and we were discussing, my struggle. I don't know what's going on, man. Like, so he suggested that I contact her, and I did. I contacted her, and then break down basically what we just talked about. I'm struggling. I don't know what's going on. I feel like a kid against this grown man, and I should be able to compete with him, but I can't. Something is blocking me. Every now and then there will be a moment where, there's a guy we drafted, but then boom, the next day he's gone. So we worked on many scripts, but this is towards my second year in the NBA. The team was moving to New Orleans, and we had worked together for a few months. And my whole goal with talking to her is, how do I stay in the NBA? So the following summer camp, I had my best summer camp outing in 3 years. I didn't feel like I was the best player in that camp, but she was there with the stats and trying to tell me, dude, that programming in your background, in your nervous system is strong, but we're working on it. It shows right now. You were the best player in that camp. And it was so interesting that, my coach at the time was very excited about me coming to my third year and, helping the team. If you look at the stats, it was not amazing, but it was my best year in the NBA.
So you were working with Terry, you killed it in summer league, you were the best player, you had write-ups, you front page of newspapers, and at that point you still didn't really believe that you were as good as people were saying. So obviously you had the time with Terry. However, you then got disconnected from Terry for a bit, and then you eventually ended up out of the NBA and you were playing overseas, and you weren't working with Terry for that period of time. So
No.
when did you realize, hey, I need to start working with Terry again? Was it while you were still playing overseas, or was it after basketball had stopped for you completely and you're like, hey, there's still some things that I need to work out?
So because I had reached my goal of getting my second contract in the NBA, and again, certain situations developed in between where I kind of lost touch with Terry, we then gradually get better. We got to the goal you wanted, but we haven't fixed anything else. So Terry only came back in the picture as I was getting more involved in life coaching.
Talk about that a little bit, because prior to getting involved in life coaching, you wrote your book, correct? Playing Small in a Big Man's World. And that's actually funny. The title is funny, right? Because it's a contradiction, right? You're 6'10" and you're talking about playing small in a big man's world. So people would obviously think that you feel very big, but obviously there's something deeper happening internally. So I want you to just talk about that a little bit, and then also talk about the book, talk about getting into the life coaching and reconnecting with Terry and what that did for you.
All right. So, post basketball was your typical athlete struggling Because my whole identity, despite what I just told you about the struggle, my entire identity was built on this is the one thing I know I'm good at. This is a gift that was given me. It's natural and it's not working out. What else am I going to do that can work out if the one thing I know I'm good at didn't work out? So that's how I approach post playing basketball. It's kind of like, okay, I'm going to coach and do some individual coaching with kids. And I love the kids, but even that was not fulfilling. It wasn't going anywhere. And then, I try to sell life insurance. I try to start a startup, an app with some friends. That went well, you can tell. And just learning along the way, but still in that time, trying different approaches to still figure out what is going on. And I finally met the right type of therapist who opened my eyes to the deep child wound of, the absentee father. And that's a very weird thing to say because I grew up with a father figure in my house since I was one. But I knew he wasn't my biological father. And I always had some issues with that, even though I was treated as a son. I was not mistreated, nothing wrong like that. Just mentally, something is missing. So at that time, I still spoke to Terry, asked for a script, while I was doing this work with this new doctor. I finally ended up working with a life coach, and she kept telling me, you have a story to tell. But again, all I did is fail. Why would I talk about my story? Fail the MBA, fail this, fail relationships. Why is it interesting to anyone? So I was never interested to put it out there until the point came that I don't even remember when that moment came, but it was, you know what? I keep saying no, but we have many more people who struggle with these things than people that actually succeed. That's what kind of like got me, okay, if this can help someone, it's going to, first of all, be therapeutic for me. But if it can help someone in the long run, that's why I started to write the book. But it was still, what am I good at? And, we always do this thing where we are great at giving advice to others, but not following it ourselves.
Yep. I'm really good.
See? So he came to the point where, you know what, I'm going to do that, which led to the life coaching. But the thing that I know that I add to this picture is the lived experience and understanding that having someone who understands the processes and that can help you understand what's going to come up and what you're going to feel and how to interpret it and not panic and not feel like it's not working. Because, we all feel different things, repressed memories, things that we try to forget or things that we don't even remember happened. But these are playing in the background whether we want it or not. And I think that's where the synergy worked out perfectly for the two of us to work together.
The last question that I have before we close out, when the jersey came off for you or when the jersey comes off for an athlete and, the crowd gets quiet, no one else is around, what do you believe that every athlete needs to know about who they are?
There are different lights to walk into. It's not just the bright lights of the spotlights of, that field that you chose. And there's nothing wrong with being in that field. But we have a tendency, like I described myself, this became my identity. It became who, if I'm not that, then who am I? And, there is so much more to Jerome and to yourselves. And these things that feel off, that feel like they're slowing you down or are in a way, I think there's just little signals to tell you, hey, we need to look at this because you are building yourself into this, putting yourself into that box. And that box doesn't last forever. Doesn't matter if you're Michael Jordan or Tom Brady or Lionel Messi or whoever. It comes to an end at some point. And most of the times, more than not, you have more than half your life left after that. So definitely having anchored in yourself as who you are, not what you do. That's what matters. Who you are is what carries on, not what you do. What you do can change anytime, any day, and that's your choice. That's all I can say.
That's good. That's good. Well, Jerome, we really appreciate this conversation, obviously, because your story speaks to a lot of athletes' experience. And a lot of us, we don't have the language for it. You made it to a level that, so many of us dream about getting to. But now your work is a lot deeper. You're working with identity, self-worth, healing, helping people stop measuring themselves only by what they achieved or the sport that they play. And that's exactly why Life Game exists. So for the athletes listening, the game can give you discipline, exposure, opportunity, and memories, but it was never meant to be the only place for you to find your worth. Jerome, thanks so much for joining us on Life Game, presented by Game on Game.
Yeah, it's one all, one shot, now the future is yours. Go!